Everyone, in this video I'll be solving Cambridge AS Level Information Technology Paper 2 Practical for the year February-March 2022. You have been supplied with the following source file. There is only one file, M22 trips. We have copied that here. You must use the most efficient method to solve each task. You work for Tavera High School and will design an entity relationship diagram for the database. The database will hold details about students, their teachers and their classes. So these are the main data upon which the database is going to be designed. The school has a weekly timetable that does not change, and these are the requirements for the database. Create a new document. Save this document in rich text format with the file name evidence followed by your center number. So let's open a new Word document. We should save this file, save as, save inside your folder. It should be saved as evidence followed by your center number and candidate number, and in the format RTF. So select rich text format and save. Create in your evidence document a conceptual entity relationship diagram to design this database. So before starting to create the ER diagram, let's see how the design looks like. So this is how an ER diagram will look like. This is an example of an ER diagram which is shown in the textbook. Each entity is represented by a rectangle. The name of the entity must be specified here. The field names, some of the field names has to be mentioned, and also the primary key and the foreign key, and the relationship must be represented by any of the symbols. For one-to-one or one-to-many or many-to-many relationships, we have to represent this way. So in order to create this design, first let's create a rounded rectangle. Insert shapes, a rounded rectangle. Then insert a line like this. Go to the selection pane and select both the images so that both are selected, and group it. So now I have grouped it. We can use this for any number of entities in the diagram. Now let's design the arrow which is to be used for the relationship. Let's select these 4 lines and group them so that we can use it. So now this represents one-to-many relationship. If you want to show many-to-many relation, you can just rotate it this. Many-to-one relation, you can just rotate it this way. So let's keep these 2 designs ready before creating the ER diagram. In order to enter the text inside the entity, let's insert a text box. With no fill and no outline. Now, according to the question, each student studies a number of subjects. For each subject studied, each student is a member of one class which has 4 lessons a week. So there will be an entity called student. There will be an entity called class which has the subjects, and there will be an entity called lessons. So every student studies 4 lessons. That means the relationship between student and lesson is many to many. And each lesson has a single teacher, but classes can have different teacher for each of the 4 lessons. That means each teacher has many lessons, so the relationship between the teacher and lesson is 1 to many. Now, so we need the entities student, class, lessons and teacher. So first let's create the student entity. I'll give the name student as the name. Then let's add some of the fields of student. Address, so this is the student table. In this, student ID will be the primary key. So let's insert in brackets PK to represent primary key. Next one is the lesson. So for lesson, I will insert the primary key, lesson ID, and the time for the lesson. Now other data we can enter, other fields we can enter according to the relationship. Next one is for the teacher. Teacher ID, name, email, or any other related data you can give here. Now next one is class. Class will have class ID, and each class has many subjects, so we can specify the subject name in class. So now I have made the tables this way. Now let's create the relationship. So according to the question, we have a one-to-many relationship between the class and the lesson. For each class there are many lessons. So from class to lesson there is a one-to-many relationship. And from teacher to lesson also there is a one-to-many relationship. So since there is a relationship between class and lesson, we have to include the class ID, which will be the foreign key. So I am writing as FK. This is the foreign key because this is the primary key in class. Now from teacher to lesson, each teacher has many lessons, so there is a one-to-many relationship between teacher and lesson. So let's add here teacher ID. Which will be the foreign key. Now there is a many-to-many relationship between student and lesson because every student is having many lessons. So many-to-many relationship is only a conceptual relationship. So we have to create a link table between these two. Let's give the name as student lesson, which will be the table to link the student and lesson. There will be a student lesson ID. Then in order to link student to this table, we will have to include student ID and in order to link lesson to this, we have to include the lesson ID. So student ID will be the foreign key. Lesson ID will be the foreign key. So the many-to-many relationship between student and lesson is split into one-to-many relationship or two one-to-many relationship by introducing a link table called student lesson. So this is the conceptual ERD diagram. Let's insert a text box and PK represents primary key. FK represents the foreign key. So this is the required ER diagram for the given database. Next, you will create a small database for the geography department to hold details of 6 field trips to different places. Use your local currency where appropriate. Format this to 2 decimal place. Open and carefully examine the data in the file m22trips.csv. Analyze the contents of this file and create a data dictionary in your evidence document. So this is the trips file. It contains details about student, student ID, name, trip ID, cost, paid to pay and destination. So we need to create a data dictionary in the evidence document for a database normalized to first normal form. Do not include the data in the to pay column. Now the conditions of first normal form are given like this. For first normal form, all fields must contain atomic data. There must be no repeating groups of data. There must be a unique key. So if you look at this data, we don't have any repeating groups, but data is not atomic. We can see that the name is full name. We can split this into forename and surname. So we need to split this name into surname and forename. Let me cut this and paste it here. Now in order to split, select the column, go to data, text 2 columns. The surname and forename are separated by a space. So click next and give space here. Next, finish. So you can see that the data is split now. So we can change this as forename and last name or surname. So now all the conditions of first normal form are met. There is no primary key because it's in first normal form. So we can take the combination of student ID and trip ID as the compound key. This compound key will uniquely identify each record in the table. Now let's save this. and we need to use this data to create the database. Now analyze the contents of this file and create a data dictionary in your evidence document for a database normalized to first normal form. Do not include the data in the to pay column. So this is the data in the first normal form. I have removed the space from student ID and trip ID to make all the field names consistent. Now a data dictionary is the details about the data in the database. So we have the field names given here. These are the field names, and we have to set the data type, format, etc. So I have already created the data dictionary for this step. So in order to create the data dictionary, you have to create a table with field name, field type, field length, format, type of key and validation, or any other data which is related to the field names can be included in the data dictionary. So in the first row I have given the name of the table. Now we have to have a column called field name, in which you will type all the field names from this table. These are the field names. Next we have to set the data type for each field. You know that in this one almost all the fields are text except cost and paid, which must be set as currency. So cost and paid are set as currency. Then the field length has to be specified here. Field length, if you look at the data, some of the data has fixed field length, so I have included only that. Student ID, you can see there are 7 characters, and in trip ID there are 3 characters. So that is given here, 7 and 3. Then for the format, as to the format, if you look at student ID, this has a consistent format of 3 letters followed by 4 numbers. So that format I have included here. L stands for numbers and 0 stands for digits. So 3 letters and 4 digits. Same way trip ID has 1 letter followed by 2 digits, that is given here. Then destination and forename last name are text. To pay is not to be included as given in the question. Now when you come to the type of key, student ID and trip ID are taken as the compound key, so I have specified that here. And validation, we can include any validation which we can use on the fields. So here student ID and trip ID are compound keys, so it must not be left empty. So given not null, and cost must be always greater than 0. Any 1 or 2 validation are enough. And in the last row I have given how many records are there in this data. So you can see here the last row is 270, so there are 269 records. So save this and close. So this is the required data dictionary in 1NF. Next we need to create a database based on this data dictionary and trips. Do not include the data from the to pay column in the database. Save your database as THS1NF. For that, open Access, create a blank database, save the data inside your folder. So the name of the database is THS1NF. Followed by your center number and candidate number. Create. Close this table. Let's import the table. external data, text file, M22 trips. First row contains field names. Click next. We should not import to pay column, so select this and give do not import. Set no primary key. Click on advanced and check the data type. Cost has to be set as currency and paid has to be set as currency. Next, finish. Go to the design view. The currency values must be 2 decimal place. Both the currency values must be 2 decimal place. So that needs to be set here. Then student ID input mask can be set as LLL, 3 letters followed by 4 zeros, which is the format. And for trip ID, again input mask is L and 00, which shows 1 letter followed by 2 digits. And the cost must be, validation rule, I have set cost as greater than 0. Let's save this. Now student ID and trip ID must be set as a compound key. So I have selected both of them, then right click primary key. So now this is a compound key. So this is the required database. Next, use the same data to create a relational database normalized to third normal form. So in the first we need to check create the data into second normal form. So second normal form must have no partial key dependence. So that means if the table can be split without any dependencies, we can do that. So here we have the M22 trips. So this contains details about the students and also details about the trips. So let's open a new Excel file. I'll copy the details about the students here. Student ID, full name and surname. And save this file as student. And the file type is set as CSV. So these are the details of students. Now you can see that there are duplicate data in this table. Let's remove that. Go to data, remove duplicates. Give OK. So all the duplicate values are removed. Save this. Now in order to create the details of the trip, the details of the trip are given here: trip ID, cost and destination. Paid is a field which is the amount of money paid by each student. So it is related to both student and trip because it is the amount of money paid by each student for that trip ID. So for the trip table we have to select trip ID, cost and destination. Open a new workbook. So I have have inserted trip ID, cost and destination. You can see that there are duplicate data here. Let's remove that. Go to data, remove duplicates. So all the duplicate values are removed. These are the required data. Let's save this as trips and again CSV format. So now you can see this is the student file and this is a trip file. So here the primary key is student ID, and in trip file the primary key is the trip ID. So in the given table you can see many students are going for different trips. Here itself you can see the same student is going for different trips. So we have a many-to-many relationship between student and the trips. So we need to create a link table between both of them to make the relationship one-to-many. So the link can be created using student ID, trip ID and the data paid. This is the data which is paid by each student for each trip. So I'll select student ID, trip ID and paid. Open a new file. So this table can be named as booking. So we need a ID for this primary key. So I have given booking ID. Booking ID I have set here. So there is a primary key here and student ID and trip ID are there. So we can relate student ID to this table, student table to this, as well as trip table to this, so that there is a relationship between both the tables. Let's save this as booking. CSV. Save. So we now have three tables which is in the third normal form. So we need to create a database with these data. THS 3NF database must be created. Click on a blank database. It must be named as THS 3NF create. Close all these tables. Now let's import the data. Student, the primary key is student ID and all the data type are text. Let's import the data. First student, the primary key is student ID and all the fields are text. Next, the trips table. The primary key is trip ID and the cost must be set as currency. Next, the booking. Here the primary key is the booking ID and the field paid must be set as currency. So this is the database in 3 normal form with the 3 tables. Let's go to the design view and set the currency as 2 decimal place. Let's save the tables. Now we have to create the relationship. Go to database tools, relationships, add all the tables. So a one-to-many relationship between student and booking, student ID to student ID, create, and trip ID to trip ID. Save the relationship. Save your database as THS3NF. You have already saved. Next, use this database to create and appropriately label a report to identify all students who have not fully paid for each trip. The amount a student still has to pay for a trip must be called outstanding balance in the report. So before creating the report, let's create the corresponding query for that. Create, query design, add all the tables. Now, according to the question, we need group the report by destination. So we need destination with only the name of the destination in the group header. Next, we need to display only the student ID, name and outstanding balance for each student within each group. So we need student ID, name, destination and outstanding balance. So I'll add student ID for name, last name, destination and outstanding balance. So outstanding balance can be calculated. This is a runtime field. So let's calculate outstanding balance. It is the cost minus paid. Paid is the amount of money paid by each student and cost is the total cost for that trip. So it will be cost minus paid. So it is calculated here. So this report is to identify all students who have not fully paid for each trip. So we need to make sure that it's not equal to 0. So you can give greater than 0 in the criteria, so that we have all the students with the outstanding balance. So this is the required query. Now let's create the report. Step 5 query. Create report wizard. Select the query. We need all the fields. Do you want to add any grouping level? We need to group this according to destination. Sorting we can do from the report. We can set the orientation as portrait. Let's give an appropriate title. List of students with outstanding balance. Click on finish. Sort the data within each group into descending order of the outstanding balance. So it has to be sorted in descending order of outstanding balance. Go to the design view, click on group and sort. Select outstanding balance and it must be descending. So from largest to smallest. Include the total outstanding balance for each destination in the report. So we need to give the outstanding balance for each group. So select outstanding balance from the details section, which is the data. Click on totals and give sum. Let's give a label for this. So the sum is given here. In order to give the label, I'll just add the destination field again. Outstanding balance for that particular destination will be shown here. In order to get the name of the destination only, this field is given here. And this is the sum. Also include the total outstanding balance for all the destination together in the airport. Total is already here, so we have to just give a label. Total outstanding balance. Make sure the data fits within the width of a single portrait of A4 page. Place your name, center number at the bottom right of each page. On the right side, include the name, center number and candidate number. Make sure it is right aligned. Now let's go to the layout view to make sure everything fits properly. Destination must be completely visible. It must be outstanding balance. Remove the outline from here. Go to Format, Shape Outline, Transparent, so that it looks like a single text. And this is the sum. We have to format it as currency. So on Design, click on Property Sheet. Format must be currency and 2 decimal place. Same way, the total outstanding also must be set as currency with 2 decimal place. So this is the required report. Save the report. Save the report within your database. So the report is saved. So this is the end of the task. Thank you for now.